Here's a screencast for the 5.1 section of the study guide. And so this top part is a paragraph that explains what an identity is. Then you have the reciprocal identities, the Pythagorean identities, which I've given you before. And then you can see here are two examples of how to solve these problems. So I'm going to go through and I'll show you how to solve all these problems, but then I'll also post the PDF of the solutions. And I'm going to split this into two parts. So part 1, 5.1, let's go ahead and let's solve for the value of each expression using the given information. So you know cotangent is the reciprocal function of tangent, meaning if you flip it, you'll get tangent. So here we have 1 over 12 over 5, so you're taking 1 divided by 12 over 5. Dividing, same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. Or you could have just flipped it since you know tangent's the reciprocal. Next one is sine's negative 1/4. Find cosecant. So you know cosecant is just 1 over sine. So you just have to flip it. So it's negative 4 over 1. And then let's find tangent let's find cotangent. Tangent's 2/3. So once again, the reciprocal function of tangent is cotangent. So if you flip this, make it the reciprocal, we'll find that out. Cool. So first 3 didn't take too long. Alright, so now we need to figure out how do we find cosecant and cotangent if we know secant and sine. So pause the video, see if you can solve this one, and then we'll keep going. So the first thing I would do is just draw your quadrants. So if secant is negative 2, think to yourself, which quadrant would we be in? So you know secant is just the reciprocal of cosine. So cosine is going to be 1 over 2, negative 1 over 2. So secant will be negative whenever cosine's negative. So cosine's negative in these two quadrants, because A, everything's positive, C, cosine's positive. So if cosine's positive, secant will be positive because they're the same numbers, they are just reciprocals. So the other thing that we know is sine is less than 0. So we know sine is the y, cosine's your x. So where is y less than 0? Y is less than 0, the y-axis. So you can see we're going to be in this quadrant. And the whole reason we do that to figure out where we are is that way we don't have the wrong sign for cosecant or cotangent. Alright, so we know secant is negative 2. Do we have a Pythagorean identity with secant in it? So you know that tan squared theta plus 1 is equal to secant squared theta. So I can plug in my number, negative 2 squared. So tangent squared theta is going to be, well, negative 2 squared is 4. 4 minus 1, because I'm going to move this guy over. 4 minus 1 is 3, so you know that tangent is going to equal plus or minus the square root of 3. So why does this help us? So secant was the one thing that we knew, and we have to find cotangent. So guess what? If I know what tangent is, I can just take the reciprocal and I'll have cotangent. So the issue is I have a plus or minus when I took the square root. Should it be positive? Should it be negative? Well, let's see. We know that sine is negative, and cosine was negative, and tangent is just sine over cosine. So we'd have a negative number over a negative number. They cancel out, so tangent should be positive. So tangent will be the positive square root of 3. So to find cotangent, you just take the reciprocal. So it's going to be 1 over square root of 3. Another way to write that is square root of 3 over 3. Either one should work. Alright, step 1, check. We have cotangent done. Next is cosecant. So if you look at your Pythagorean identity, you see that cotangent squared plus 1 is cosecant squared. So we know cotangent squared theta plus 1 is equal to cosecant. Go ahead, write that down. Cotangent squared theta plus 1 is cosecant squared theta. We know cotangent already? Yeah, cotangent right there. So we'll go ahead, I'll plug that in. Square root of 3 over 3 squared plus 1 equals cosecant squared theta. Let's see, square root of 3 squared. Well, squared goes away, so we have 3 over 3 squared, 9 plus 1 cosecant squared theta. So that's going to be equal to 12/9. I just made it have common denominator. Square root both sides. So cosecant of theta will be plus or minus the square root of 12. So it's 2 square 3 over 3. Let's see, cosecant, should this be positive or negative? Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. I know that sine is negative because it says less than 0, so this has to be negative. Cosecant theta is negative 2 square 3 over 3. Alright, let's try the next one. So pause the video, try this out yourself, and then you can come back to see the explanation. Cool. So here, let's go ahead, all students take calculus. Let's figure out which quadrant we're going to be working in. Then I'll know whether things should be positive or negative. So cotangent is negative. That means tangent also is negative. It's the same numbers, just reciprocal. So this is going to be either in this quadrant or this one. That is where cotangent's negative. Now let's figure out where sine is also negative, less than 0. Cool. So we can see for sure we should be in this quadrant. So cotangent's negative, sine was negative. Cosine should be positive, because check it out, see, positive. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so that should be negative. Alright, so we just worked with cotangent. We said cotangent of theta plus 1, cotangent squared theta plus 1 is equal to cosecant squared theta. Hey look, I have to find cosecant. This actually works, right? Let's make sure I write it down. Cotangent squared plus 1, cotangent squared plus 1 equals cosecant. Perfect. Awesome. Alright, so plug in the numbers for cotangent. Cotangent is negative 4/3. So negative 4 squared is 16, 3 squared is 9, plus 1, that's going to be 25/9, is equal to cosecant squared theta. If you square root both sides, you'll get plus or minus 5/3 is cosecant theta. So did we decide if it should be positive or negative already? Cool. We already talked about how it should be negative. Cosecant's negative because sine is negative. So cosecant of theta will be negative 5/3. Alright, now we need to find cosine. So if cosecant is negative 5/3, keep in mind, literally cosecant is just 1 over sine. So here we can figure out that sine of theta is going to be the reciprocal, so it's going to be negative 3/5. Now that we have that, we can easily find cosine. Because you know, sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is equal to 1. But if you don't want to deal with any more square roots, we could also talk about how cotangent of theta is equal to cosine over sine. So there's 2 different ways we could go about this. Plug in for sine up here with the Pythagorean identity, get cosine by itself, or plug in sine and cosine here, get cosine by itself. I'm going to go with the bottom way, just so it's something different. So to get cosine by itself, multiply by sine on both sides. Multiply by sine. So I'll do sine of theta times cotangent of theta. Oh my god. Sine of theta multiplied by cotangent theta. Does this look like crap? Alright. And that will equal cosine theta. So sine is negative 3/5. Multiply cotangent, negative 4/3. So cosine is going to be, well, I see that I have a 3 and a 3. These negatives cancel out, so I'll have 4/5 is cosine of theta. Cool. We would get the same answer if we plugged in for Pythagorean identity. We have negative 3/5 squared plus cosine squared theta equals 1. So if you do 1 minus 9/25, you get, oh my gosh, so much room. You get 16/25 is equal to cosine squared theta, square root on both sides, 4/5 equals cosine theta. And we already talked about how it should be positive. So that's the other way of doing it. Cool. Alright, last one from this part. If secant theta equals -4 and cosecant of theta is greater than 0, find cosine theta tan theta. Let me figure out what my sign should be. Secant is -4. Secant's reciprocal of cosine. So where is cosine negative? Cosine's negative, where x is negative, right here. Now we also have cosecant is positive. So where is cosecant positive? Well, cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. Whenever sine is positive, cosecant's positive. So where is sine? Where is y positive? Right there. Check it out. This is the quadrant we're going to be working in. We need to find cosine and tan. Well, cosine will be an easier one, because we know if secant is -1/4, oops, giving away the answer, -4/1, and you know secant is just 1 over cosine, flip it, and we know that cosine of theta is going to be -1/4. Check. Alright, so cosine should be negative, which it is. Perfect. What about tangent? Tangent should be negative as well, because tangent's only positive in the first and third quadrant. So secant here is negative, cosecant's positive. Cool. So having a negative cosine and a positive sine, we should have a negative tangent. So is there an easy way to find tangent, just one equation, or am I going to have to find sine? That's my next question. So let's see. Look at our identities. I see that tangent plus 1 equals secant squared theta. Sweet. Tangent squared theta plus 1 equals secant squared theta. And check it out. That's what I need to solve for, is tangent. So tangent squared theta equals secant, let's see, -4 squared minus 1, I just moved it over. So 16 minus 1 is 15. Tangent squared theta is equal to 15. Square root both sides. Here, tangent of theta will be plus or minus the square root of 15. And we already decided it should be a minus. So tangent of theta is negative square root 15. Awesome. So the other part is simplifying and rewriting trig expressions. So I'll cut off this video and then I'll make another.